My name is Eric Corbett, and I am the owner of an architecture and design firm in Los Angeles, California. And I am also the Chief Creative Officer of a company called Azure Printed Homes, and we are the world's first robotically printed 3D homes.
Okay, what was the company's situation before working with WorldTeams?
Okay, great. On the architecture side, it was rather conventional. I had a hierarchy of managers and all the different sort of trades and divisions that are responsible for the type of work that I was doing, which is really creative, really high-end, very bespoke. We always said we became experts in something just in time to never do it again. And so there was a lot of inner workings and a lot of reliance on communication in teams. And all of that comes with very, very high price tags when you're in LA. I mean, extremely high price tags. I'm paying people $250,000 a year to run teams. And so after I began working with WorldTeams, I had a couple of really successful experiences and began to to be quite honest, I was really aloof from the process. I was a few steps removed, and I was just kind of watching as that was happening. And before I knew it, I was getting more and more involved, and before I knew it, I was actually taking future energies and pushing them toward those types of employment opportunities instead of having to carry all these high price tags for the work that I was doing. So for the architecture firm, it was a very smart progression from the standpoint of cutting through the operational infrastructure that those type of demanding companies require. Now, as CCO for Azure, that was an entirely different experience because at that point, I had already had a couple of great experiences and great experiences with employees, but I would say even more so, great experiences with the way that those employees are offered and managed and the people that are responsible for them and the way that they have worked with me and even trained me to consider employment in a different way. And so having had that experience, I took that into Azure and just started straight from the beginning. And so we didn't even bother hiring certain levels of people. We've been focusing on a certain level of skill. And now as the company grows, I know that WorldTeams is perfectly capable of growing to that next step. And so now I'm starting to hire managers to manage the assets and the people and all of the responsibilities and relationships. And I will assume I will continue to hire people at even smarter people, even more creative and more talented people as I continue. So that's both companies.
How did you connect with WorldTeams?
Again, because I was sort of aloof, we were really experimenting with ways to think ahead. And so I think I had tasked a couple of people with looking into alternative ways to employ and things like that. We probably tried a couple. I'm sure we tried several and had some successes
And why did you choose WorldTeams?
Well, in business, when you put two things together and they work, then yeah, you come back and you check and you make sure that they continue to work, but you really rely on it. And that's how you build. And so for us, it was just like the obvious, it's working and everybody's happy and everybody's needs are met. So to stop that would actually be going backwards.
What would you recommend to other firms or businesses facing the same challenges as you before contacting us?
I think the most important thing that I have developed working with WorldTeams, to answer your question, is that I have a very, very clear picture of the people that I'm looking for. So I'm not throwing out a net and kind of interviewing a talent pool. I'm looking for very specific people. And I think the thing that is unique about WorldTeams in my experience is that the people that I trust that are bringing me people and bringing me opportunities, they know me. And they've actually asked me tough questions, and we've worked through tough scenarios, and we've gone through all sorts of things. So really, honestly, this might just be me and my relationships, but I feel like WorldTeams is very much like more sojourner than service provider.
When you mentioned that thanks to WorldTeams, you saw employment differently, what did you mean about that?
The conventional way that you look at employment is pretty cut and dry. You go out and you look at talent and you bring them in, and they're there in the office, and you give them equipment and you give them a chair to sit in, and you integrate them into the team, and it takes a couple of months for them to really kind of like figure out where to get gas and get groceries and feed their cat and all that stuff. You're paying for it. It's an operating expense, and that's fine. That is business, and that's a way of doing business, and so I think I carried a lot of that sort of notion into the way that I was organizing my architecture firm specifically, not Azure, and so I think with working with the leadership at WorldTeams, I was able to start to see employment as more like a big happy pool of people ready to jump in and jump out and ebb and flow with the needs that I have operationally. And so I'm one of those kind of people that I love people. I want to make connections with people. I have a certain amount of loyalty. And so when I make a hire, I've just moved somebody, or I've brought them out of a world and put them into a new world. It's a big commitment, and I'm now stuck with them. And so sometimes that's great, sometimes it's not. And so you go through this attrition, and that's just the way that employment works. And so now I don't actually worry about that. The people that are brought to me, I know for the most part, I probably could just let WorldTeams hire them and say, great, thanks. But I trust that the people that are being brought to me have already been pre-qualified, have already been vetted, and then we ask tough questions together, and so I'm able to look at employment more from the standpoint of my immediate need and what am I forecasting right around the corner, not in 6 months from now when I've trained up a new team to think about a new way of doing business.
What do you think about the quality of whatever you get delivered?
Quality output is quality input. So I spend a lot of time trying to be as clear as I can. So I think the immediate obvious concern would be communication, right? So if I am spending all this energy being clear, but it's not being received, then what good is it? I'm pouring a lot of my energy away. And so it's been a moot point, the language barrier, for the most part. Like, in other words, as I've built a team, I haven't had to worry about that. That has always been an attribute or a quality that was present in the people that I was employing. And so for me, that is the most important aspect, is the ability to communicate ideas and to ask good questions. And I always say, let's make better mistakes tomorrow, so this is all about communication. So I feel like that has been probably the core requirement working with WorldTeams that has been met.
Did you have any difficulties with the different time zones that you have from your team?
No, I don't know if I'm unique in that way. I think that a lot more companies are thinking more open-minded about how to cultivate life in their employees and allow deadlines to be met and allow people that think differently to work differently. And so I personally have always been able to communicate on a regular schedule with my team, and I've never, I get a better response from WorldTeams than I do from Airbnb.
I was gonna say thank you for sharing and thank you for answering all our questions.